Coffee Break. Thoughtful conversations for a busy world. Let's begin.
I want to ask you a question, and I really want you to be completely brutally honest with yourself as you listen to this.
Oh, we're starting right in with the hard stuff. Huh?
Yeah, right into the deep end today. So, think about your life right this very second. Are you currently sitting on a massive goal?
Right.
Maybe it's a deeply desired career pivot that you've been sketching out in notebooks for, 3 years.
Or maybe a creative project, right? Like writing a screenplay or launching a business or painting.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe it's something deeply personal, like, pursuing a new relationship or finally setting a hard boundary with a family member.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about. It's that thing hovering right in the back of your mind. Now, here's the brutal part of the question.
Okay, let's hear it.
Are you actively telling yourself that you just need to read one more book before you actually begin?
Ouch. Yeah.
Right. Are you telling yourself that you just need to do a little more, personal work or find the perfect morning routine?
Or get your mental health absolutely dialed in.
Yes. Or curate the perfect Notion dashboard before you take that first real terrifying step.
I feel like you're attacking a lot of people right now.
I mean, I'm attacking myself a little bit too.
Yeah.
You're nodding, aren't you, listening to this? You have that towering stack of unread self-help books on your nightstand.
We all have that stack.
And you have a folder on your phone bursting with saved social media posts about optimizing your life or healing your inner child.
Right, because deep down, you are entirely convinced that the secret skeleton key to starting your life is hidden somewhere in that pile of content.
Exactly, somewhere in that pile.
It is a profoundly universal place to find oneself, like that distinct, paralyzing sensation of being perched right on the absolute edge of your own existence.
Yeah, just staring down at the water.
Staring at the water, but deeply convinced that you lack some essential, invisible prerequisite to finally jump in.
Wow, yeah, an invisible prerequisite.
We convince ourselves with incredibly sophisticated logic, by the way, that we are doing the work.
Oh, totally. We feel so productive.
But in reality, we have just become world-class experts in researching how to do the work. I mean, we are basically confusing the accumulation of potential energy with the application of kinetic energy.
Okay, the accumulation of potential energy versus kinetic energy. That is exactly the friction we are unpacking today.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. So we are exploring this fascinating, deeply provocative concept from our source material today, known as the self-help trap.
Right.
We are going to dismantle a paradigm that modern culture has completely normalized. I mean, the mission for this deep dive is to unpack this paralyzing paradox.
The paradox of preparation.
Right. The idea that dedicating your life to getting ready means you are structurally guaranteeing that you will miss out on living it entirely.
It's a heavy realization.
It is. Okay, so let's unpack this, because on its face, it feels like a total contradiction, right?
It does. It goes against everything we're taught. Exactly. We are raised in a culture that treats self-improvement as a religion. We are told from day one that trying to be better, trying to improve our flaws, trying to heal our emotional wounds is like the highest possible moral good.
The ultimate virtue.
So how is it logically possible that the very desire to improve ourselves is the exact mechanism holding us back?
Well, it feels counterintuitive precisely because the trap is wrapped in the vocabulary of virtue.
Wrapped in the vocabulary of virtue. I like that.
Yeah, so the research we are examining today argues that our culture has fundamentally distorted the relationship between preparation and action.
How so?
We have created this psychological paradigm where getting ready is no longer a precursor to doing. It has become a socially sanctioned substitute for doing.
A substitute. Wow.
Yeah.
So we're just replacing the action entirely.
Exactly. And the psychological mechanics behind this trap are incredibly insidious because, and this is crucial, they don't prey on the lazy.
Wait, really? Because it sounds like a form of procrastination.
It is. But that is the greatest misconception. The individuals most hopelessly caught in the self-help trap are almost always highly motivated, highly intelligent, deeply conscientious people.
Oh, so it's the overachievers getting stuck.
Yes. They are putting in the staggering amounts of intellectual and emotional effort. But that effort is being entirely misdirected into a closed self-referential loop.
So it's not a lack of effort at all. It's a complete misallocation of effort.
Precisely.
The core argument we're looking at draws a very hard, almost unforgiving line between the preparation phase of life and the action phase of life.
A very firm boundary.
Yeah, it posits that these are two fundamentally different states of human consciousness, and that we have this fatal tendency to get hopelessly comfortably stuck in the former.
Because if we look at the illusion of preparing to live, the research presents a really stark dichotomy.
Right.
Basically, if you are always preparing to live, you are never actually living. They are mutually exclusive operating systems.
Mutually exclusive, so you can't be doing both at the same time.
No, because they require entirely different cognitive frameworks. I mean, think about it. When you are in a state of preparation, your mindset is inherently speculative.
Yeah, you're just planning.
Right. It's insulated. You are operating in a sterile laboratory of hypotheticals. You are gathering resources, mapping out potential pitfalls, running mental simulations.
It's Eve.
Exactly. It is a state of total controlled simulation. But living actual execution in the real world is the exact opposite.
It's messy.
Highly volatile, unpredictable, messy, and real. The self-help trap springs shut the moment we adopt the subconscious belief that if we just simulate the experience long enough and gather enough data, we can eliminate the unpredictability of the execution phase entirely.
Oh, like we can read enough books about swimming so that we won't get wet when we finally jump in the pool?
Exactly. We believe we can study the water so intensely that the physical reality of it won't apply to us.
That is wild. Let me put an analogy to this because I think everyone listening has done this in some form.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's like spending years, literally years, meticulously packing a suitcase.
Oh, I know people like this.
Right. You are constantly taking things out, folding them perfectly, using some new, minimalist method you read about on a blog.
Rolling the socks just right.
Exactly. You spend weeks researching the absolute best, most durable ballistic nylon travel gear. You buy the optimal color-coded packing cubes.
You've watched all the YouTube reviews.
You watch endless video tutorials on how to adjust your circadian rhythm to avoid jet lag. I mean, you are the undisputed global expert on the contents of this specific suitcase.
But
you never actually walk out the front door, hail a cab, and go to the airport. You never get on the plane.
you never leave the bedroom.
And I have to ask you, listening to this right now,
Yeah.
are you just packing your psychological suitcase right now? Like, are you just endlessly folding your emotional socks?
That suitcase analogy perfectly captures the illusion of motion. You feel like you're traveling, but you're standing still.
Right, because packing feels productive.
But to understand why we do this, we really have to look at the underlying neurobiology of psychological safety.
Okay, let's get into the brain science of it.
We need to examine exactly why the human brain overwhelmingly prefers the perfectly packed suitcase to the turbulent airplane.
Because airplanes are scary.
Exactly. Preparing mimics the feeling of progress. It provides your brain with all the neurochemical and emotional rewards of moving forward, but it does so without exposing the organism to the actual existential risk of failure.
Or social rejection or, just crushing disappointment.
Right. So when you spend 3 hours researching the optimal marketing strategy for a business you haven't started yet,
Dopey.
or when you read a dense psychological text about overcoming attachment anxiety, your brain registers that activity as a victory.
You feel immense productivity.
You feel like you are taking radical charge of your destiny. But structurally, you are completely insulated from the real-world consequences of actually launching the business and having zero customers.
Or making yourself vulnerable to another human being and just being brutally rejected.
Yes, you get the reward without the risk.
But wait, I want to challenge this mechanism for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because if the brain already understands that dopamine drives the reward circuit, like, what is actually happening here? Because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that dopamine is the molecule of more.
It is, yeah.
It's supposed to be the fuel that drives us to pursue goals. So if reading a self-help book about habits gives us a dopamine hit, shouldn't that dopamine act as the exact fuel we need to get off the couch and execute the habit?
You would think so.
Right. Why does it have the opposite effect? Why does it paralyze us instead of propelling us?
That is a brilliant pushback, and it gets to the very heart of how modern media hijacks our evolutionary biology.
Hijacks it.
Yes. You are absolutely correct that dopamine is a seek chemical. It evolved to motivate the organism to seek out rewards, right? Food, shelter, a mate.
The basics of survival.
In a prehistoric environment, the dopamine circuit was deeply tied to physical action. You felt the drive, you hunted the mammoth, you achieved the reward, the loop closed.
Action, reward, done.
But what self-help literature, endless podcast consumption, and obsessive planning do is they create a short circuit.
How so?
They offer what we might call consumptive dopamine that mimics achievement dopamine.
Consumptive versus achievement.
Okay. Because the human brain is highly adept at abstraction. When you read a vivid, transformative account of someone else building $1 million business,
Or achieving, like, total inner peace.
exactly, your mirror neurons fire. Your brain experiences a phantom version of their success. The dopamine is released based on the consumption of the idea rather than the action itself.
Oh, wow. So the brain essentially thinks the mammoth has already been hunted.
Exactly. The brain says, we have acquired the necessary survival information. The loop is closed.
That is wild.
The biological drive to seek is satiated by the mere act of reading about the seeking.
So you finish a profound book on discipline, and your brain just floods with neurochemicals that make you feel as though you yourself have just demonstrated immense discipline.
You feel transformed. You close the book and think, I am a new person.
But the reality is, Monday morning rolls around, the alarm goes off at 5 a.m., and your actual physical behavior hasn't changed a millimeter. You just hit snooze.
Because the dopamine was tied exclusively to the consumption of the abstract concept, not the execution of the physical action.
And the brain is lazy, right?
The brain is fundamentally an energy-conserving organ. If it can get the feeling of success by sitting on a couch reading a book, rather than facing the agonizing friction of changing actual behavior, it will choose the couch every single time.
Every time. That is genuinely terrifying.
It really is when you realize how often we do it.
So we are essentially engaging in a neurochemical sleight of hand. Like, we are embezzling feelings of accomplishment from actions we haven't actually taken.
Embezzling accomplishment, that's a perfect way to phrase it.
But I have to push back again.
Right.
Because we can't just throw out the concept of preparation entirely, right?
Of course not.
Isn't some level of preparation an absolute non-negotiable reality of life? Let's take an extreme physical example.
Okay.
If I decide today that I want to run a 100-mile ultramarathon.
Please don't do that today.
Right. Because I cannot simply put on a pair of old sneakers, walk out my front door right now, and start running into the woods.
No, you would injure yourself immediately.
I would destroy my joints, I would face severe rhabdomyolysis, or I would literally die of exposure. I have to train. I have to buy the right gear. I have to figure out a complex hydration and caloric strategy.
You have to prepare.
I have to prepare. So where is the line? Where's the boundary between necessary practical preparation that prevents us from destroying ourselves and falling headfirst into this paralytic self-help trap?
That is the vital distinction, and the research is very clear on this. The trap is not about the acquisition of practical material skills. If you want to perform open heart surgery, you absolutely must spend a decade in medical school. You cannot skip the anatomical preparation.
Good to know. My future patients will be thrilled.
Right. If you want to run an ultramarathon, massive physiological adaptation is a biological requirement. The line is crossed and the trap is sprung when the preparation shifts from the practical and finite to the emotional and existential.
Okay, break that apart for me. Finite practical preparation versus infinite existential preparation.
Practical preparation has a defined endpoint. It is measurable. You can track your weekly mileage for an ultramarathon, right?
Yeah, I ran 20 miles this week, 30 miles next week.
Exactly. You can take a practice exam for the medical boards and see your score, objectively when the criteria have been met.
There's a finish line to the preparation.
Yes. Existential preparation, however, is the insidious, unquantifiable belief that your inner self must be flawlessly aligned before you are allowed to participate in the external world.
Wow. Flawlessly aligned.
It is the belief that life itself, things like falling in love, launching a creative endeavor, or simply allowing yourself to be happy, requires a prerequisite level of psychological perfection.
So practical preparation asks, do I have the physical stamina and caloric plan to run this 100-mile race?
Exactly. While existential preparation asks, am I emotionally evolved enough to identify as an ultra runner?
Oh, man. What if I look foolish at the starting line?
Right. What if my underlying, unexamined childhood trauma of always finishing last in middle school prevents me from truly experiencing the spiritual joy of the run?
Oh my God, yes. People actually think this way.
You see the distinction. One is a mechanical preparation of the body or the intellect. The other is a never-ending subjective audit of the soul.
A subjective audit of the soul. I see it perfectly. And one of those has a finish line, while the other is just a bottomless pit.
A completely bottomless pit.
Because if you are waiting to feel existentially worthy or perfectly emotionally regulated before you start the business or ask the person out, you will wait until the day you die.
You will.
Because perfectly emotionally regulated is a ghost. It doesn't exist.
It's a complete myth.
You know, in machine learning, there is a concept that perfectly illustrates this trap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called getting stuck in a local maximum. Have you heard of this?
I know a bit about it, but break it down for the listener.
So imagine an AI algorithm that is tasked with finding the absolute highest peak in a massive, sprawling mountain range.
Okay.
Starts walking, it climbs a small hill, reaches the top, and looks around. And every single step it could possibly take from that specific spot goes downhill.
Right, because it's at the top of that specific hill.
Exactly. So the algorithm logically concludes, I must be at the highest possible peak in the entire world. I have optimized my position perfectly.
But it's not.
But the algorithm is entirely blind to the fact that just across a dark, scary valley is Mount Everest.
Oh, wow.
It refuses to go down into the valley of discomfort, so it just stays on that tiny, irrelevant little hill forever, perfectly optimizing its safe little patch of dirt.
That is a staggeringly accurate framework. The self-help trap is the human equivalent of optimizing for the local maximum.
Are we just algorithms refusing to cross the valley of discomfort?
We really are. We tweak our morning routines, we perfect our journaling habits, we optimize our supplement stacks. We are making tiny, incremental improvements on our little hill.
We feel very optimized. We've got the sunlight in our eyes at 6 a.m. We've got the cold plunge.
But true living, reaching that global maximum of a deeply fulfilled life, requires traversing the valley.
You have to go downhill into the dark for a bit.
It requires stepping out of the optimized routine and entering the messy, unoptimized reality of human relationships, financial risk, and artistic vulnerability.
So the preparation just becomes an excuse to never leave the hill.
An incredibly sophisticated excuse, yes.
And if the brain is just looking for a socially acceptable excuse to stay on that hill and avoid the valley of discomfort at all cost,
which it is,
then the ultimate hiding spot right now, like the absolute best camouflage available in modern society, has to be the wellness industry.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because if we move from the illusion of preparation into the next core argument of the research, we hit a concept that is deeply controversial.
Very controversial.
The research explicitly highlights what it calls the trap of endless healing.
It is arguably the most provocative point in the material we are diving into today, and it requires a very nuanced examination.
Yeah, we have to tread carefully here.
The core argument is that the pursuit of resolving all past traumas, eradicating all character flaws, and soothing all insecurities can actually mutate into an infinite loop.
An infinite loop of healing.
Right. It becomes a full-time, all-consuming identity that actively prevents the individual from engaging with the very life they're supposedly trying to heal for.
Just hearing the phrase, the trap of endless healing, it feels rebellious.
It does.
It almost feels taboo to say out loud. Because we live in an era where healing is treated as the ultimate, unquestionable virtue. Like you can't criticize someone's healing journey.
You really can't, socially speaking.
So how did we get to a place where healing went from being a medical necessity to an existential trap?
Well, to understand this, we have to look at the broader sociological shift in how modern culture has commodified and medicalized the human psyche over the last 30 years.
Modified the psyche.
Yes. We have adopted a highly clinical diagnostic lens for everyday human friction.
What do you mean by everyday human friction?
Historically, normal human emotions, grief, temporary anxiety, heartbreak, confusion, these were viewed as the standard operating friction of existence. It was just part of being alive.
You get dumped, you're sad for a while, that's just life.
Exactly. Today, however, the psyche is frequently treated as a perpetually broken machine that requires endless diagnostic work, optimization, and fixing.
Wow.
When an individual adopts this model, their fundamental identity shifts. They transition from being a participant in the messy arena of their own life to being a full-time patient.
The patient versus the participant, that is a massive paradigm shift.
It changes everything about how you interact with the world.
Because if you view yourself as a patient, your primary overriding job is to be cured.
Right.
And until you are perfectly cured, you belong in the hospital bed, metaphorically speaking. You don't belong out on the dance floor of life. You're too fragile. You're under construction.
Exactly. And the cultural and economic reinforcement of this patient identity is monumental right now.
Oh, there's so much money in it.
There is a multi-billion-dollar industry books, intensive retreats, highly specialized boutique therapies, and just an endless stream of social media influencers built entirely around helping you discover new, deeply hidden micro-traumas.
Microtraumas you didn't even know you had.
Right. Subtle emotional flaws that you didn't even know you possessed until an algorithm told you about them.
Yeah, you open up an app and suddenly you find out the way you tie your shoes is actually a symptom of an unhealed inner child.
Exactly. The moment you diligently resolve one issue, the algorithms and the culture are structurally designed to hand you 3 more to worry about.
So the finish line keeps moving.
The horizon of being fully healed constantly recedes the closer you get to it. And as long as you are actively pursuing that receding horizon, you possess a culturally sanctioned, bulletproof excuse to avoid the terrifying realities of actual living.
The cultural sanctioning is what makes it so unbreakable.
It's the perfect defense.
Think about how celebrated this trap is. If you tell your friends, hey, I'm not going to apply for that promotion because I'm terrified they'll realize I'm not that smart.
Right, imposter syndrome.
Or I'm not going to try dating right now because I'm scared of rejection. Your friends will likely push back. They'll say, come on, don't say that. You're brilliant. Take a risk. Put yourself out there.
Because that sounds like fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you use the magic vocabulary of the wellness industry,
The jargon.
yes. If you say, I'm staying home to do some deep inner child work, or I'm taking a year off from dating to focus on my healing journey and regulate my nervous system, you get a standing ovation.
People say, wow, good for you.
That is so brave. Protect your peace. Do the work.
It is the perfect, unassailable alibi for not taking risks. Nobody can challenge you on it without sounding like an absolute monster.
You literally can't argue with it. Oh, you're regulating your nervous system. Cool. I'll just see you in a decade.
That is a highly astute observation of the current social dynamics. The vocabulary of clinical psychology has leaked out of the therapist's office and into mainstream conversation.
Therapy speak.
Yes, therapy speak. And it is frequently being weaponized as a highly sophisticated defense mechanism against life's standard demands. We use clinical terms to legitimize our avoidance.
But I know exactly what you, listening right now, might be thinking. Because I'm thinking it too.
What's that?
We have to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
What about real, agonizing, legitimate trauma?
Yes, we absolutely must address that.
Because we cannot sit here and dismiss the profound necessity of healing for someone who has experienced severe abuse, a shattering loss, or deep systemic trauma.
No, absolutely not.
Some people have been through unimaginable things, and they legitimately need time, professional resources, and safety to put the pieces of their psyche back together. We can't just tell someone with severe PTSD, hey, stop whining, healing is a trap, go out and live.
That would be incredibly harmful.
So how do we reconcile this? Where is the clinical line? How does the listener know if they are genuinely doing the hard, necessary work of trauma recovery, or if they have slipped into the comfortable quicksand of endless defensive healing?
That is the essential caveat, and it is vital we treat it with absolute clinical precision. Trauma is a physiological and psychological reality.
Right.
The initial stages of processing severe trauma absolutely require stepping back, creating a safe container, and establishing baseline emotional regulation.
You have to stop the bleeding first.
Exactly. However, the psychological framework we are exploring delineates between 2 distinct, opposing phases of this process: active healing and defensive healing.
Okay, active healing versus defensive healing. Let's really pull those apart. What do they look like in practice?
Active healing is fundamentally dynamic. Its ultimate objective is the restoration of functionality and capacity.
Functionality, meaning you can actually do things again.
Right. The goal of active healing is to process the pain, acquire coping mechanisms, and build resilience so that the individual can slowly and perhaps very painfully at first step back out into the friction of the world.
Okay.
In active healing, you go to therapy to gain the tools to manage the intense anxiety of a relationship so that you can actually participate in a relationship.
I see.
Defensive healing, on the other hand, is static. It adopts the label of unhealed as a permanent existential shield against trying.
So the label becomes your identity.
Exactly. It uses the therapeutic process not to build capacity for the world, but to build an increasingly thick, impenetrable wall against the world.
So active healing is about getting back on the field, even if you have to wear a massive restrictive knee brace.
Yes.
You know it hurts, you know you're vulnerable, but you are playing the game.
You're in the arena.
But defensive healing is deciding that because you once suffered a severe knee injury, you're going to spend the rest of your life sitting alone in the locker room.
And justifying it.
Right. You spend your days obsessively analyzing the MRI, the injury, reading countless books about the biomechanics of knees, and eloquently explaining to everyone who walks by why the field is simply too dangerous and triggering for you to ever step onto again.
That analogy perfectly captures the tragic irony of the situation. Let's do a deep dive into a hypothetical scenario to see how defensive healing actually manifests, because it rarely looks like someone just cowering in a corner.
Yeah. What does it look like in everyday life?
It usually looks highly functional and articulate. Imagine an individual who has spent 5 years heavily engaged in self-help and pop psychology.
Okay, I can picture this person.
They have become incredibly fluent in therapy jargon. They regularly use phrases like protecting my peace, setting firm boundaries, honoring my triggers, and removing toxic elements from their life.
We've all heard these phrases a million times.
Now, in the context of active healing, a boundary is a necessary, permeable line drawn to prevent actual harm so that healthy interaction can continue.
A permeable line. So stuff still gets through, just not the bad stuff.
Right. But in the grip of defensive healing, this individual weaponizes the concept of boundaries. They use it to systematically isolate themselves from any interaction that isn't perfectly comfortable and entirely under their control.
Oh, wow. So a boundary just becomes a brick wall.
Exactly. When a friend offers mild constructive criticism, they label the friend toxic and cut them off.
Oh, man.
When a new romantic partner expresses a need that requires compromise, they claim the relationship disrupts their peace and abandon it.
That's just avoiding accountability.
Their world systematically shrinks. They are technically doing the work. They are journaling every morning. They are analyzing every micro-emotion. They are listening to endless deep dives on trauma.
But they're completely alone.
But the ultimate result is profound, sterile isolation. They have weaponized their healing against the inherent messiness of human connection.
They have weaponized their healing against the messiness of human connection. That is a devastating observation.
It happens so often.
Because human connection, and just existing in society in general, is structurally guaranteed to be messy.
It is unavoidable.
You cannot sanitize life. You are going to get your feelings hurt. You are going to face rejection. You are going to fail at projects. People are going to misunderstand you. That isn't trauma. That's just a Tuesday on planet Earth.
Well said.
But if you have convinced yourself that your ultimate goal is to reach a state of absolute, unshakable peace and perfect emotional regulation before you engage with life, you are basically demanding that the universe stop spinning before you're willing to step outside.
Precisely. And the ultimate tragedy of defensive healing is that it actively starves the individual of the very experiences that provide true, organic, psychological healing.
Wait, explain that. How does it starve them?
Often, the cure for a paralyzing fear of rejection isn't another year of analyzing the origin of that fear in a sterile room.
It's not.
No, it's experiencing a minor rejection in the real world, surviving it, and allowing your nervous system to realize that the rejection did not annihilate you.
Oh, so the real world actually heals you.
Yes. The cure for a lack of confidence isn't standing in front of a mirror repeating positive affirmations. It is engaging in a difficult, real-world task and proving to yourself through empirical evidence that you're capable.
You have to earn the confidence.
Defensive healing denies the brain these vital, corrective emotional experiences. A bone heals stronger after a break, but only if it eventually bears weight again.
Ah, the knee brace analogy again.
Right. If you keep the cast on forever out of fear of re-injury, the muscle beneath it entirely atrophies.
If you keep the cast on forever, the muscle atrophies. We're walking around a society full of people with emotional casts on, desperately wondering why we feel so incredibly weak and fragile.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And it's a moving target, isn't it?
Right.
The root cause of this endless healing loop is this completely imaginary destination we have constructed in our minds.
The destination of being fully healed.
Right. We are trying to map a territory that is constantly shifting beneath our feet. We're waiting for the boat to stop rocking before we agree to learn how to sail.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the final, and I think the most liberating paradigm shift we need to discuss from the sources today. The myth of ready enough.
This is the crux of the entire paradox. The psychological and historical research posits a very firm, unavoidable conclusion.
Hit us with it.
You will never feel ready enough to start. Readiness, particularly in the context of major life transitions or significant emotional risks, is an absolute cognitive illusion.
A cognitive illusion.
It simply does not exist in the human operating system.
Okay, let's really dig into that because it contradicts everything we feel in our bodies, right?
It does feel wrong initially.
When I think about taking a massive risk, I feel a deep sense of unreadiness. It feels like a very real physical warning sign. My stomach drops, my chest gets tight.
Yes, the physiological response is very real.
So why is the feeling of readiness an illusion? If we look at how the brain actually evaluates risk, what is happening under the hood when we stare down a big decision and feel that overwhelming sense of, I am not ready to do this?
To understand this, we have to look past modern psychology and look at our deep evolutionary biology.
Okay, back to the caveman days.
The human brain is an exquisitely tuned survival machine. Its primary overriding directive above happiness, above fulfillment, above self-actualization is simply keeping the organism alive until tomorrow.
Just don't die today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In order to execute that directive, the brain is heavily biased toward the status quo.
Because the status quo is safe.
In a primitive environment, the known, even if it is uncomfortable or miserable, is statistically safer than the unknown. The unknown is where the predators live.
Right.
The unknown is where you eat a poisonous berry. The unknown is where you get ostracized from the tribe and freeze to death.
So the brain hates the unknown.
It despises it. Therefore, whenever you contemplate stepping out of your established comfort zone, quitting the secure job to start the business, having the deeply vulnerable conversation, sharing your raw art with the world, you are introducing unpredictability. You are introducing the unknown.
And the brain freaks out.
Your brain's alarm systems, specifically the amygdala, will immediately fire. The brain acts as an inference machine trying to minimize surprise. Action generates prediction errors.
Because you don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. Preparation minimizes them. So the brain will highlight every potential danger. It will drastically amplify your feelings of inadequacy. It will scream at you through cortisol and adrenaline that you're not ready.
Because to the primitive survival brain, not ready doesn't mean you need to read another book on marketing.
No, not at all.
To the primitive brain, not ready just means this action is new and therefore it is potentially fatal.
Exactly. The brain literally associates the social or financial unknown with the threat of death. So, the absence of fear, which is what we mistakenly label as feeling ready, will never, ever arrive when you are doing something meaningful.
Let me repeat that. The absence of fear will never arrive.
Never. If you wait for the fear to subside before you act, you are quite literally waiting for a fundamental biological survival mechanism to stop functioning.
Which means you'd have to have brain damage.
Pretty much. The anxiety, the imposter syndrome, the tight chest, the overwhelming feeling that you are entirely unqualified for the life you want, these are not signs that your healing journey is incomplete.
They aren't.
No. They are not signs that you need another retreat. They are simply the standard operating friction of a biological organism pushing against the boundaries of its known environment.
There's growing pains.
Exactly. Biological growing pains.
So what does this actually mean for us? What does this mean for the person listening to this right now who has been waiting 5 years to feel brave enough to change their life?
It means a complete redefinition of how we operate.
It means we have to completely, radically redefine our relationship with courage, doesn't it?
Yes, we do.
Because we have been sold a massive lie by movies and pop culture that courage looks like this stoic, fearless hero staring down danger with a perfectly calm heart and a steady pulse.
The James Bond myth.
Right. But if readiness is a biological myth, then courage isn't feeling ready.
Not at all.
Courage is feeling completely, undeniably unready. Courage is feeling the intense anxiety of being unhealed. Courage is looking at your messy, complicated, thoroughly imperfect self, feeling the absolute terror in your chest, and doing the thing anyway.
It is a profound redefinition. And if we look at the historical record, it is the only definition that aligns with reality.
Let's talk about history because the sources touch on this too.
Yes. If we examine the lives of highly impactful people, the great artists, the innovative leaders, the individuals who have pushed humanity forward, we see this dynamic with absolute clarity.
They weren't fearless.
We tend to view historical figures as monuments, fully formed and fearless. But if we dig into their letters, their diaries, their internal communications during the most pivotal moments, we do not find supreme confidence.
What do we find?
We find massive, crippling insecurities. We find agonizing, paralyzing doubt.
Oh, absolutely. The historical examples are staggering when you actually look at them. Think about Abraham Lincoln.
A prime example.
We picture him carved into a mountain, resolute and unshakable. But Lincoln suffered from what he called melancholy, which today we would undoubtedly diagnose as severe clinical depression.
Yes, debilitating depression.
During the winter of 1840 to 1841, he had a complete psychological breakdown. He literally told his law partner that he was the most miserable man living, and that if what he felt were equally distributed to the whole human family, there would not be one cheerful face on the earth.
That is incredibly dark.
He was deeply unhealed, he was terrified of failure, yet he still went to the legislature. He didn't wait to be perfectly emotionally regulated and healed from his depression to lead the country through its darkest period or to sign the Emancipation Proclamation.
He couldn't wait.
He'd do it while actively suffering.
That is a perfect example. We see the same pattern across all domains. Look at Charles Darwin.
Oh, Darwin is fascinating.
He developed the core theory of evolution, one of the most paradigm-shifting scientific breakthroughs in human history. But he sat on the manuscript on the origin of species for over 2 decades.
2 decades. Why?
Because he was terrified. He was plagued by anxiety about the social and religious backlash. He suffered from constant stress-induced physical illnesses.
Like what?
Stomach issues, heart palpitations, agonizing eczema. He was the very definition of unready. His internal state never gave him the green light to publish.
So what finally pushed him?
He only finally published it because he found out Alfred Russel Wallace was about to publish a similar theory and beat him to it.
External pressure.
The external environment forced his hand. His internal preparation never reached a state of readiness.
And even in modern times, you look at someone like Maya Angelou.
A literary icon.
She wrote multiple massive bestsellers. She spoke at a presidential inauguration. She was universally revered. Yet she wrote extensively about feeling like an absolute imposter.
Imposter syndrome at that level.
She said that every time she published a new book, she thought, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody, and they're going to find me out.
It never goes away.
None of these people had it all figured out. They didn't achieve greatness because they finished their self-help journey. They didn't wait until their internal landscape was a perfectly serene, optimized Zen garden.
Because that doesn't exist.
They started while actively broken, deeply confused, and thoroughly terrified.
They understood, either intuitively or through the hard forge of experience, a fundamental law of human psychology. Action precedes readiness. Not the other way around.
Say that again. Emphasize that. Action precedes readiness. We always put the cart before the horse.
We do. We fundamentally believe the psychological sequences. Get ready, feel confident, and then take action.
Right. I'll do it when I feel confident.
But the actual empirical sequence is take action, survive the initial shock, realize the action did not kill you, and then the confidence and the feeling of readiness begin to develop retrospectively.
Retrospectively. So you look back and realize you were ready because you did it.
You become ready by doing the thing you are deeply unready for. The competence, the confidence, and the emotional regulation are the rewards of action, not the prerequisites.
It is so wildly backward to how we are taught. But realizing that you will never, ever be ready, honestly, when you really let that sink in, it is incredibly freeing.
It takes so much pressure off.
Think about it. If readiness is a biological myth, if it's a physiological impossibility to feel perfectly calm and prepared before taking a massive life risk, then you are officially off the hook.
You are.
You don't have to keep trying to solve the unsolvable equation of your own mind. You don't have to keep fixing yourself until you are flawless. The pressure is entirely off.
You can just stop packing the suitcase.
Exactly. If the only logical next step is to accept your unreadiness, then we have to look at how we can start living today, right now, in all our imperfect, unhealed glory. So how do we actually break the loop?
Breaking the loop requires a radical acceptance of your own current unoptimized state.
Unoptimized state. I love that.
It requires looking at the suitcase you've been packing for 5 years, realizing you forgot your toothbrush, realizing the colors clash, and deciding to get in the cab and go to the airport anyway.
Just grab the messy bag and go.
The transition from the self-help trap to actual living requires a violent shift in focus. You have to move your attention from internal diagnostics to external reality.
Stop looking inward.
You have to stop asking the unanswerable question, am I fixed enough to do this? and start asking a highly practical question.
Which is?
What is the smallest, messiest, most embarrassing step I can take in the direction of this goal today?
Let's get incredibly practical about that. Let's say someone listening right now wants to completely change careers.
Okay, classic scenario.
They've been stuck in the trap for 3 years. They've read every book on finding your passion. They've taken the Myers-Briggs, the Enneagram. They've done the deep dives on their childhood conditioning, but they haven't applied for a single job because they don't feel aligned.
Very common.
How exactly do they break the loop tomorrow morning?
They break the loop by committing to external action entirely, regardless of their internal emotional weather.
Regardless of the internal weather.
They have to accept that the internal weather will be stormy. They will wake up feeling like an imposter. Their amygdala will be screaming.
The fear will be there.
They must let the storm rage while their physical hands type the resume. Breaking the loop means sending the email to a potential contact while your heart is pounding against your ribs and your brain is telling you that you are making a fool of yourself.
Oh man, hitting send while your hands are shaking.
It is about the strict decoupling of the action from the feeling. You do not need to feel like a writer to sit down and write a terrible, disjointed first draft. You do not need to feel brave to act bravely. You just need to move your physical fingers across the keyboard while allowing the fear to exist simultaneously.
Decoupling the action from the feeling. You don't have to eradicate the fear, you just have to let the fear sit in the passenger seat while you drive the car.
Exactly.
It can yell at you, it can tell you that you're going the wrong way, it can critique your driving, but it does not get to touch the steering wheel.
Beautifully said. Yes. And we must also address how this practical application applies to the trap of endless healing we discussed earlier.
Right. How do we get out of the healing trap?
Breaking out of the healing trap does not mean you abandon your mental health or stop going to therapy.
No, of course not.
It means you shift your objective from defensive healing to active healing. You must test your healing in the friction of the real world.
Give me an example of testing it.
If you have been working for 2 years on your fear of intimacy, the next step isn't another year of journaling about your attachment style.
It's not.
No. The next step is going on a coffee date, experiencing the profound awkwardness, perhaps experiencing a minor rejection, and surviving it.
Actually sitting across from another human being.
The real world provides the resistance necessary for the psychological healing to actually solidify into strength. You have to lift the weight.
Wow. We have synthesized a massive amount of intense paradigm-shifting material today from these sources.
We covered a lot of ground.
We have gone deep into the neurobiology, the sociology, and the historical reality of this trap. So let's recap the core takeaways, because this is the kind of understanding you need to write on a sticky note and put on your bathroom mirror so you see it every single morning.
Absolutely. The first major takeaway is recognizing the illusion of preparation.
The suitcase.
Right. We must be hypervigilant about when our research, planning, and consumption of self-help literature stops being practical skill acquisition and mutates into an existential shield against the risk of failure.
Remember the neurobiology. Your brain will eagerly reward you with consumptive dopamine for simulating progress.
You must demand real-world evidence of movement from yourself.
Exactly. Don't confuse the dopamine of reading a book about habits with the achievement dopamine of actually building the habit. Don't optimize for the local maximum while ignoring the mountain right in front of you.
Second takeaway.
The trap of endless healing.
Yes. It is dangerously easy in our current culture to adopt the permanent identity of the patient and use therapy jargon to build walls instead of bridges.
Weaponizing boundaries.
We have to be brutally, uncomfortably honest with ourselves. Are we actively healing so we can get back onto the messy field of life? Or are we defensively healing so we have a culturally applauded excuse to stay in the locker room forever?
We have to ask ourselves that hard question. And the final culminating point from today's deep dive.
The feeling of being ready enough is an evolutionary ghost.
A ghost. It's not real.
It is a biological mirage that will perpetually recede as you approach it, because your brain is wired to fear the unknown. The absence of fear is not a prerequisite for action. Rather, action is the only known biological cure for the fear.
Action precedes readiness.
The greatest achievements, the most profound art, and the deepest fulfillments in human history have been accomplished by people who were secretly terrified, deeply unhealed, and completely unsure of themselves.
They just did it anyway. They let the fear ride shotgun, and they drove the car.
That's the secret.
And that brings us directly back to you listening right now. Look at your own life in this exact moment. Don't look at next week. Don't look at your 5-year plan. Look at today.
Right now.
What is the one thing, and you know exactly what it is, it popped into your head the absolute second. I asked the question at the beginning of this deep dives, what is the one thing you are over-researching, over-preparing for, or defensively healing from to avoid actually doing?
It is the most vital question you can confront today. And as we conclude this exploration, I want to offer a final contextual note.
Please do.
Taking action, abandoning the myth of readiness, and stepping out of the self-help trap does not mean being reckless. It does not mean ignoring genuine trauma.
Important distinction.
It means realizing that true, profound human growth cannot happen in the sterile, controlled laboratory of your own mind. It only happens in the arena of life.
In the arena.
It happens in the messy interactions, the failed attempts, the awkward conversations, the rejected proposals. That friction is where the actual data of your life is generated. You cannot analyze data you haven't yet gathered through experience.
You cannot analyze data you haven't gathered. You have to get out of the waiting room and step into the arena. It is time to close the self-help book. It is time to leave the perfectly packed suitcase by the door and just walk outside into the weather.
Embrace the mess.
Embrace the mess. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. It's something that builds on everything we've explored today from our sources, but takes it just one step further.
Let's hear it.
You've spent so much time, so much energy, and probably a lot of money trying to fix yourself. You've been trying to become this polished, perfectly ready, emotionally unassailable, totally optimized version of yourself before you finally step out into the world and begin your real life.
We all do it.
But what if your unhealed, imperfect, not quite ready self is exactly the version of you that the world needs right now?
That's a shift.
What if the very flaws you are desperately trying to fix in the self-help trap, your nervous energy, your hypersensitivity, your weird obsessions, your lingering doubts, are actually the specific, unique tools you need for your journey?
The bug is actually a feature.
Exactly. What if the jagged white line on that emotional x-ray isn't a sign that you are broken and need to stay in bed, but rather the exact place where you are going to grow the strongest? You don't need another book. You don't need to be perfectly healed. You just need to start.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Coffee Break. If this conversation stayed with you, you can find more episodes here on the channel. Until next time, take care.